All right, I'm propagating my Asiatic lilies or fire lilies from bulbwoods. Let me show you how to do this. Come join me in the chaos. All right, so I've been going around propagating my lilies, and I realized some people might not know how to do this. I always check with my wife on things like this, and I'm like, you gotta propagate lilies, just to check if that's a normal thing that most people know. And it's not a normal thing that most people know, according to my wife. So I'm just gonna show you how to do it. So when your lilies start looking like this, so you have Asiatic or fire lilies, Oriental lilies. I've heard a lot of different names for them. A lot of times they'll grow little mini bulbs along the stem. This particular type, the Asiatics, don't have little mini bulbs on the under the leaves, but they'll have them under the ground. And so the question is what's the best way to do it? Yes, I get to get a shovel and dig the whole thing up, but I realized that the stem easily detaches from the big bulb. So there'll be a big bulb really deep down, like 4 or 5 inches down, depending on how many years it's been in the ground. Each year it gets a little deeper. You'll get that main bulb on the very bottom. But above the main bulb along the stem, you'll have a bunch of mini bulbs that already have roots on them. And I want to show you what this looks like, because I'm assuming this has them. Sometimes they don't because they fall off, but I'm gonna have to move that. It's in a bad spot anyway. So that's the main bulb. So the little hole right here is where the stem was, but along the stem was these little mini bulbs. So 1, 2, 3, and then if you look right here along the stem, I'll just hold this up to the camera so you can see. Along the stem, you'll have all these mini bulbs, and they'll actually have their own roots. And I realized what happens is a lot of these mini bulbs will start from the previous year's big bulb. So see this big bulb right here? Next year, this big bulb will have a stem that comes out through this. And when it does, a lot of these, I think the energy from a lot of these will come into the stem, and then you'll get a lot of these mini bulbs as well. I'm not 100% sure on that, but the point is along the stem, next year again, you'll have these little mini bulbs, and you can just kind of like work these carefully off the sides, and they'll come off like this, and you'll see it's like a mini version of this humongous bulb that's ready to plant. You can literally just pull these off and just plant them. And as you saw, I pretty much just grab them, and then you just carefully pull them out. I would say like 85 to 90% of the time, it just detaches and leaves the big bulb under the ground. Depends on how soft your soil is. Like my soil is very soft just because over the last couple years, I just keep on mounding up more and more mulch, and the mulch decomposes and just creates this really soft cake-like soil. So my soil is pretty soft. It used to be really hard compacted clay, but just keep on pouring mulch on top of compacted clay, and eventually you just get this amazing soil. And long story short, all these little bulbs are free, ready to plant. No reason to go to the store and buy a whole bunch more bulbs, although they're not incredibly expensive. I mean, you can't buy them quite this big, but you can buy bulbs about a quarter this size, maybe less than that, maybe smaller, from Walmart in a big bag. I think it was like 20 bucks for 10 bulbs or something. They're probably like $2 each. Maybe it's less than that, I don't remember. But yeah, I just started off with a bag. It was actually in the discount section because they'd been sitting there for a while, so I think I paid like, 5 or 10 bucks for a bunch of bulbs. But ever since that first year, I've just been doing this, and then putting these bulbs in just random spots just to have more and more flowers. So I'm sure the garden companies don't want me teaching you this. Just kidding, they probably don't care. But it's fun to add a little bit of drama, So if you have lilies and you have these little dead stems sticking up, just pull them out of the ground. You're not gonna hurt them. You'll have these little bulbs that you can detach. That way you can spread them out. Because if you don't spread them out, you're just gonna get a big cluster of lilies, unless that's what you want. If you want a big cluster of lilies, just leave them. But if you kind of want to spread them out, and I would highly recommend spreading them out if your goal is to have lots of flowers anyway, because by spreading them out, you're giving them more real estate to develop big bulbs, and then you can just keep repeating this, and before you'll know it, you have more bulbs. And if you ever run out of space, you can literally just stick these things along fence lines or around trees or around compost piles, around gardens even. It's nice to actually put these around vegetable gardens because you'll give more things for predators to eat. And you don't really care if, you know, the predators munch on the leaves of these things, because there are different species in your plants. It's probably going to be different predators. And if anything, it'll distract the predators from eating the stuff you care about. Because these can take a good amount of browsing predation, where, you know, other things eat on them. And it's not going to change the fact that they're going to flower out just fine. Because they'll produce a nice, beautiful flower. And then they'll spend the next, you know, 6 months just gathering sunlight to create these bulbs to make more babies. So this is how these particular plants reproduce. I've also heard people say that you can cut off this bottom section and just plant it. And sometimes you'll even get some microscopic ones that you can't see, or even the stem itself will actually come back the next year with more growth. So once I'm off camera, I'll probably just cut this little section off and just stick it under the ground in a section I'll remember, just to see what happens. But I have a feeling that this bottom section might actually come back as another plant. And then of course I need to remember to plant this. Something else you can do if you want to, and I've done this, is you can take this thing apart. All these little scales, I think is what they call them. You can take these off carefully, and you can actually plant these not too deep, and you'll get little mini bulbs that form with little mini growths, and they'll actually create new plants as well. They just take a lot longer to actually flower. Like if you go that route, you'll get a little plant, but it won't flower the first year. You have to wait until the second year before plants grown from scales from these big bulbs will actually grow. But if you have an expensive lily and you just want to harvest 2 or 3, 5 of them off the big bulb and then just put the big bulb back in the ground, you know you're guaranteed to get flowers off of that big bulb. But then you have a chance of getting more of the expensive lilies off of that. So these ones are really cheap, so it doesn't really matter. It's more about just having more flowers. But anyway, that's an easy way to turn one lily plant into, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lily plants. So it's like a 10-to-1 increase almost. So super easy thing you can do. And if you don't like flowers, you're like me and you just like food plants, do it for your wife or your kids, whoever likes flowers in your life. They'll love it. Thanks for joining me in the chaos.